Hello, welcome to the Professor Knits podcast. My name is Nikki and I'm your host. I am coming to you from Knoxville in East Tennessee. And you can find me on Instagram as the Professor Knits. I can be found on Ravelry as Medusa Yarn, as well as on Facebook, Medusa Yarn. And I have a website, medusayarn.com. So all over the social media platforms as either the Professor Knits or Medusa Yarn and Fiber. Speaking of Medusa Yarn, I am currently having a store-wide sale, 30% off. So it's a pretty big discount. I think we can all use a little bit of a break in these trying times. And that 30% off store-wide sale includes my luxury yarn, which is a alpaca silk cashmere base, it's the Muses base, which I normally never discount, but I figure in these sort of difficult times, it might be worth offering it up at 30% off. So go on over and take a look. If you see something you like, let me know. Also, please feel free to subscribe to my channel. Just hit that little subscribe button or give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I've been told that I need to ask people to do this. They don't think to do it on their own. And then that's the best way to get more attention. Not that I would do this for 3 viewers or 100 viewers. It doesn't matter to me, but I've been told and encouraged by other YouTubers to make sure I ask you to subscribe. So I will. Please subscribe. All right, so what do I have going on? Well, where do I even begin? Oh, why don't I begin by telling you what I'm wearing? This is something from the archives from a couple of years ago, and it is the Baldric Pullover by Isabel Kramer. You all know that Isabel Kramer is one of my all-time favorite designers. And I loved knitting this. It's, like I said, a couple years ago. It's a very basic knit in the round raglan sleeve pullover with some beautiful garter stitch paneling. It's kind of hard to see. Placed on the arms as well as down the side of the torso. And this is knit in a Noro yarn, which is it's been a couple years now. It's a beautiful blend of wool, lamb's wool, silk, cashmere, and nylon in an Aran weight. And I had bought it at Loopville, my local yarn store. Actually, most of what I'll be showing today is yarn that I've bought there. And the reason why Loopville is just an amazing yarn store is because when she has her clearance section to get rid of old inventory, she puts the yarn on clearance that I still want to buy, right? It's not the yarn that nobody really wants to buy. I want to buy that yarn. So I really, really feel fortunate that Jinka over at Loopville, does put desirable yarn. And I know we all desire certain types of yarn, but often when I go into yarn stores and I look at what's on sale or clearance, I kind of think to myself, well, I wouldn't even pay, I don't want that yarn. But I always find clearance yarn that I love at Loopville. All right, so what am I knitting? I have a couple of works in progress that I'm going to show you. The first one you've seen before, both of these you've seen before. And the first one that I'll show you is the Vivian Pullover that I'm knitting, right there, by Jennifer Wood, who's Woodhouse Knits, in her Refined Knits book. Okay. And I love this. It's a beautiful, classic, sophisticated design. And it's hard to tell because it's of the color, but after you get to a stockinette stitch bodice up here, down here is sort of a ribbed section with a little bit of lace detail before you get to that scalloped bottom. So what I show you, I'm just starting this section right here where I'm done the stockinette stitch, and now I'm starting this ribbed panel, okay? So I'll show you. I haven't made that much progress in the last week. But there you go. So I've just started that ribbing. What you see right there. Beautiful yarn. Again, an example of a clearance yarn that I got at Loopville. Shibui Knits. It's the yarn that's called for in this book, and it's the staccato. So it's 30% silk, 70% superwash merino. Now these skeins are only 50-gram skeins with 191 yards per skein. So I had to get all 5. She only had 5 left, and this is already several months ago. I got all 5, so I knew that that wasn't a lot of yarn for a garment, and I was going to have to knit something short sleeve or sleeveless. So this was the perfect match. I had both. I didn't even realize that that particular design called for this exact yarn. And this is the Blueprint colorway. I am knitting it on size 4 needles instead of the size 3 that it calls for, because I want a droopier gauge, a droopier fabric. So that's the first of my works in progress. Now my other work in progress I showed you guys last week when I had just cast it on. And when you see how much I've done in 1 week, you'll know why not a whole lot got done on my Vivian. So my next work in progress is my City Limits by Tanis Fiber Arts. It's a black and white photo, but she's the Montreal designer. And it is a pretty popular design right now. I think Tracy just finished hers in the Grocery Girls podcast. And I decided I was gonna knit it because I thought it might be a nice, fun, easy knit. And is it ever? Let me just get this ready here. Now, it's designed to be a fade held with 2 strands of fingering weight held together. And then you fade it using your different skeins. I decided to go with a gradient instead, using just a worsted weight. So I went with a gradient pink, and look how much I've gotten done. Can you believe that? Oh, I've been knitting almost monogamously, pretty much monogamously on this because it's such an easy knit. So it's designed to be wore with the garter ridges out, which might be hard for me because I do like the right side more than the wrong side, but I'll wait and see until it's done and blocked, and then I'll decide. And it's if you wear it with the garter bumps out like it's called for, then you've got this beautiful detail right here of the knit stitches that create this nice little detail. Now, a couple of things that I'm very unhappy about, which is my own fault. And I'll talk about the yarn in just a second. First of all, I started out, because I didn't have the right size needles at the time, in a circular, I started out on DPNs. And I knit most of the pink, the light pink, with DPNs. And I was not careful enough about keeping the joins between the different needles really tight. And I feel like there's just some really loose areas. That's my own sloppy knitting. So that's one thing I'm kind of upset about. So if I were to start over and do this again, I would have just waited for my needles. I would not have gone ahead and done it on the DPNs. So that's one thing. Second of all, when I've made the transitions from one yarn to the next, I wish I would have done more interchanging with skeins so that it would be a more subtle transition. Now, for the darker colors, I'm already on the 4th color right here. It's not as obvious, but this initial transition, I wish I had gone a little bit more of a subtle transition. So really not that big of a deal, and just I'll know for next time, you know. Now the yarn is my own Medusa Yarn and Fiber, and I did, like I said, it's a gradient. And my cat has been fooling around. So I'll just show you a couple of the balls that are kicking around. The lightest, I'm sorry, that darn cat. 1 second. All right, I got it back. So this lightest pink, I have lost the leftover yarn, which tells me the cat got to it. And for those of you, the cat goes nowhere near my dye, like where all my yarn is stored and stuff like that. So don't feel like, well, anyways, when it comes to the yarn I'm knitting with, it's exposed to cats, my cat, but not otherwise. Where was I? Oh, yes. The leftover of the lightest pink I can't find, so it's probably under a piece of furniture or something like that. But I'm not concerned because I don't need it for the sleeves. So when I knit the sleeves, I want to make sure that the gradient stripes match exactly with the body of the sweater. So I don't need the light pink. All right. So there's the light pink, and then there's these other 3 colors. So I'm on the 4th color. And I think that I might have made my sections a little bigger than I should have, because I don't think I'm even gonna get to the 5th skein of yarn, which is the darkest in the gradient. Okay. Which I'm kind of disappointed, because I would have liked that, and had I just, again, this is my own fault, had I made these sections a little bit more narrow and the transition a little more subtle, I would have probably gotten to that 5th skein. Because if you can see, this is the darkest area at the bottom, that's only the 4th skein. And I don't need to knit that much more, just 5 or 6 more inches. So we'll see. This should be done the next time I podcast, fingers crossed. But I really like it. I was lucky I got this particular pattern when it was available for free. She had made it available for free for about a week, and so I snagged it then. And the yarn I already had on hand, because it's my own yarn, Medusa Yarn and Fiber. So it's a very affordable project for me to be making, the free pattern and my own yarn. So those are my 2 works in progress that I'm currently knitting on. I always have more works in progress kicking around, but I won't show them to you because I have not knitted on them at all. Now, I have decided what my next knit is going to be, and this is going to be in the Refined Knits book again, and it's going to be the Corinne Pullover. I'm obsessed with this book. I mean, I know it's not a new book. I've had it for a while, but I'm suddenly obsessed with it. Look at that. Isn't that a gorgeous, gorgeous, elegant pullover? With this, I don't know how well you can see, but it's got beautiful cable panel down the front. Sort of a knot. It looks like a Celtic knot. And then there's a cabling down the sleeve. You see that? And then, and this is the pièce de résistance, the back. Look at that. I cannot wait. Isn't that just amazing? So I decided to go with the yarn that she called for, and that is Madeline Tosh Pashmina. I'm doing a slightly different color. I'm doing the Poison colorway. But this yarn is really luxurious. It's 75% superwash merino, 15% silk, 10% cashmere. And so I called up Loopville and asked Jinka if she had 5 skeins in this particular yarn, and I gave her a couple of different colors I would consider knitting this in. And she had Poison. This is the Poison colorway. And she had the size 8 needles that I needed originally for my city limits. And so I decided to splurge and go for it, because it's a pretty expensive skein of yarn, and I got 5 of them, but look at the way it cakes up. You know, and I decided it's worth it to support the local yarn stores. And I probably have, the amount of money this yarn cost me is more than I would normally spend, but I would have spent in the last 6 weeks that much money or more probably on gas going to and from work. So I figure it's an equal trade-off, and then I get to try this amazing yarn and support my local yarn store. So if you do live in Knoxville, make sure you do check out Loopville and the Yarn Haven. I haven't checked in with the Yarn Haven recently. I'm not too sure if they're doing the curbside sales as well. I hope they are. But I'll have to wait for my next paycheck for that. Just kidding. So yeah, that's my my next project. I'm not going to let myself cast this on. I'm going to start swatching it, because I'm going to actually swatch. I never swatch. I'm one of those people who never swatches. But this one I will, because of that delicate cabling. So I'm going to swatch, and I haven't done cables in a long time, so I'm looking forward to it. And then I will not allow myself to officially cast it on until one of my other garments is complete. Today's going to be a really short episode. I'm kind of rushing because I want to get this done before my husband gets home, because then we're going to take the kids for a drive. We have to get them out of the house, and we're just going to drive out to the mountains and drive back, since we can't get out of our car, the Smoky Mountains. But we need to spend some quality time that doesn't involve a TV, my knitting, or my husband's video games. Like, it's just, we need to get a change of scenery for sure. So we're going to be doing that. So I needed to keep this particular episode short. But I did want to mention, if anybody's wondering about this beautiful, beautiful painting behind me, well, I shouldn't say painting, it's a print of a sheep standing in snow. Clearly, she needs to be shorn. This is, if you're Canadian, you probably have heard of Robert Bateman. He's a very famous Canadian artist who's still alive, but I think he's 80 or 89 or 90. And he's sort of a beloved Canadian artist who all of his paintings are natural based. So birds, wolves, bears, sheep. And this one is from 1991. But they're very, very difficult to get. Like, an original painting would be completely unaffordable for me. Completely, like tens of thousands of dollars. And the prints are quite, especially the limited edition prints, which is what this is, are quite expensive and rare as well. And so my aunt, who used to own a sheep farm up in Canada, she has several prints of his, I believe. And she gave me this one because she no longer has the sheep farm. Her and her husband, when they became too old, they eventually got rid of all their sheep and their cows and everything. And they decided to give this to me because they knew how much I love sheep, and that I was so into the process of, like, I buy a fleece, I wash it, I clean it, I card it, I spin it, I like the whole process from sheep to shawl, literally. And so when she found out, she was the one who taught me to knit when I was 10 or something like that. When she found out how far down the Fiber Arts rabbit hole I had gone, further than she's ever gone, my aunt and uncle, decided to give this to me. And so it's a very precious, special print, not only because it's quite rare, and because it was given to me by my beloved, beloved godmother and knitting guru, but also because it's a sheep. I mean, it's beautiful. My husband, when I hung it, he was kind of like scratching his head. He's like, we're going to have a picture of a big sheep in our living room. I'm like, yes, we are, because it's gorgeous, and I love it, and it reminds me of my passion for knitting and for wool every single day. So I thought I'd mention that to you guys. And I got to give her a name. I've never named her. I don't even know what her breed is. So I'm going to bring you guys closer. If you can suggest A breed? What breed do you think it might be? Or a name?